NCERT Class 8 History Chapter India after Independence. A new and divided nation. When India became independent in August 1947, it faced a series of very great challenges. As a result of partition, 8 million refugees has come into the country from what was now Pakistan. These people had to be found homes and jobs. Then there was a problem of the princely states, almost 500 of them, each ruled by a Maharaja or a Nawab, each of whom had to be persuaded to join the new nation. The problem of the refugees and the princely states has to be addressed immediately. In the longer term, the new nation has to adopt a political system that would best serve the hopes and expectations of its population. So India became independent in August 1947, but it has to face a series of problems. The problems of the Nawabs and Rajas and the refugees which came from now called Pakistan. And for all these, the state has to adopt a new political system. India's population in 1947 was large, almost 345 million. It was also divided. There was divisions between high castes and low castes, between the majority Hindu community and Indians who practiced other faiths. The citizens of this vast land spoke many different languages, wore many different kinds of dress, ate different kinds of food, and practiced different professions. So India's population in 1947 was almost 345 million. It was divided also, like high castes and low castes. To the problem of unity was added the problem of development. At independence, the vast majority of Indians lived in the villages. Farmers and peasants depends on monsoon for their survival, so they did the non-farm sector of the rural economy. For if the crops failed, barbers, carpenters, weavers, and other services groups would not get paid for their service either. In the cities, factory workers lived in crowded slums with little access to education or healthcare. Clearly, the new nation has to fish its masses out of poverty by increasing the production of agriculture and by promoting new job-creating industries. So there was not only problem of unity, there are problem of development also. For non-poverty, the state has to increase its productivity of agriculture and by promoting new jobs, creating industries. Unity and development had to go hand in hand. If the divisions between different sections of India were not healed, they could result in violent and costly conflict. High caste fighting with low caste, Hindus with Muslims, and so on. At the same time, if the fruits of economic development did not reach the broad masses of the population, it would create fresh divisions. For example, between the rich and poor, between cities and countryside, between regions of India that were prosperous and regions that lagged behind. So unity and development had to go hand by hand. So the government was to take new steps. So at last a constitution is written. Between December 1946 and November 1949, some 300 Indians has a series of meetings on the country's political future. The meeting of this Constituent Assembly were held in New Delhi, but the participants came from all over India and from different political parties. These discussions resulted in the framing of the Indian Constitution, which came into effect on 26 January 1950. So Constituent Assembly, December 1946. Between December 1946 and November 1949, there are 300 Indians from different political parties. It is held in New Delhi. As a result of this discussion, the Indian Constitution came into effect on 26 January 1950. That is the Republic Day. One feature of the Constitution was its adoption of universal adult franchise. All Indians above the age of 21 would be allowed to vote in state and nation elections. This was a revolutionary step, for never before had Indians been allowed to choose their own leaders. In other countries such as United Kingdom and United States, this right had been granted in states. First, only men of property had the vote Then men who were educated were also added on. Working class men got the vote only after a long struggle. Finally, after a bitter struggle of their own, American and British women were granted the vote. On the other hand, soon after independence, India chose to grant this right to all its citizens, regardless of gender, class, or education. So, the first feature of the Constitution is its adoption of universal adult franchise, that all Indians above the age of 21 would be allowed to vote in the state and national elections. It is such a revolutionary step because such developed countries such as United Kingdoms and United States has this right granted in states. But on the other hand, India soon after independence chose to grant this right to all its citizens regardless of gender, class, or education. A second feature of the Constitution was that it guarantees equality before the law to all citizens, regardless of their caste or religious affiliation. There were some Indians who wished that the political system of the new nation be based on Hindu ideals and the India itself be run as a Hindu state. They pointed to the example of Pakistan, a country created explicitly to protect and further the interests of a particular religious community, the Muslims. However, the Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru was of the opinion that India could not and must not become a Hindu Pakistan. So the second feature of the Constitution was that it guarantees equality before law. That is, all persons are equal before law. It's the rule of law. Besides Muslims, India also have large population of Sikhs and Christians as well as many Parsis and Jains. Under the new constitution, they could all have the same rights as Hindus, the same opportunities when it came to seeking jobs in government or the private sector, the same rights before the law. So all the communities has the same right before the law. A third feature of the Constitution was that it offered special privileges for the poorest and most disadvantaged Indians. The practice of untouchability, described as a slur and a board on the fair name of India, was abolished. Hindu temples preciously open to only the higher caste were thrown open to all, including the former untouchables. After a long debate, the Constituent Assembly also recommended that a certain percentage of seats in legislature as well as jobs in government be reserved for members of the lower caste. So, the third feature of the Constitution is that it offered special privileges for the poorest and most disadvantaged Indians. And untouchability has to be abolished, and certain percentage of seats in legislatures as well as jobs in government be reserved for members of the lower castes. The Constituent Assembly spent many days discussing the power of the central government versus those of state government. Some members thought that the central's interest would be foremost. Only a strong center, it was argued, would be in a position to think and plan for the well-being of the country as a whole. Other members felt that the provinces should have great autonomy and freedom. A member from Mysore feared that under the present system, democracy is centered in Delhi and it is not allowed to work in the same sense and spirit in the rest of the country. A member from Madras insisted that the initial responsibility for the well-being of the people of the provinces should rest with the provincial governments. So the fourth feature that it adopted federalism. Federalism means the existence of more than one level of government. Now we have three levels of government. So first it thought that only central government have the right, but then at last it gives the rights to the three sectors of the government. The Constitution sought to balance these competing claims by providing three lists of subjects. A union list with subjects such as taxes, defense and foreign affairs, which would be the exclusive responsibility of the center. A state list of subjects such as education and wealth, which would be taken care of principally by the state. A concurrent list under which would come subjects such as forest and agriculture, in which the center and the state would have joint responsibility. So the Constitution provides three lists of subjects. That means a union list with subjects such as taxes, defense and foreign affairs. It is the responsibility of central government. And a state list of subjects such as education and health. It is the responsibility of state government. And a concurrent list, the subjects of forest and agriculture, which is the responsibility of central and state governments joined together. Another major debate in the Constituent Assembly concerned language. Many members believe that the English language should leave India with the British rulers. Its place, they argued, should be taken by Hindi. However, those who did not speak Hindi were of a different opinion. Speaking in the assembly, T.T. Krishnamachari conveyed a warning on behalf of people of the South, some of whom threatened to separate from India if Hindi was imposed on them. A compromise was finally arrived at, namely that while Hindi would be the official language of India, English should be used in the course, the service and communication between one state and another. So the next debate was about language. So at last, Hindi would be the official language of India and English would be used in the course, the services and communication between one state and another. Many Indians contributed to the framing of the Constitution, but perhaps the most important role was played by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who was chairman of the drafting committee and under whose supervision the document was finalized. In his final speech of the Constituent Assembly, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar pointed out that political democracy has to be accompanied by economic and social democracy, given the right to vote would not automatically lead to a removal of other inequalities such as between rich and poor or between upper caste and lower caste. So many Indians contribute to the Constitution, but the most important role was played by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who was the chairman of the drafting committee of the Constitution.